Picture two clouds of points on a page, one class on the left, one on the right. Now draw a line that separates them. Easy, right? Except there are infinitely many lines that do the job, and most of them are quietly bad choices. This is the question a support vector machine answers, a classic classifier from Cortes and Vapnik back in 1995 that genuinely ruled the world before deep learning arrived. It picks the single best line out of all those options, and it has a clever trick for the messy cases where no straight line works at all. Here's how it thinks. Let's start with the core idea because it's really a question about which boundary to trust when so many of them look correct on paper. Look, any old separating line will split your training data correctly. But a line that schemes right past the points of one class is fragile. Shift a single new example a little and it lands on the wrong side. That kind of boundary memorizes your data and generalizes poorly to anything new. An SVM instead hunts for the boundary with the widest possible gap on both sides, the maximum margin. It's the line that stays as far as it can from the nearest points of either class. That breathing room is exactly what tends to generalize best when fresh data shows up, because a new point has room to land before it ever crosses the line. Now let's walk through how the machine actually finds and draws that boundary, piece by piece. Everything begins with the widest margin boundary between the two classes. Among all the lines that separate them, the SVM solves for the one whose gap to the nearest points is as large as possible. That gap is the margin, and maximizing it is the whole objective. Here's the surprising part. Only a handful of points actually matter, the ones sitting right on the edge of that margin. Those are the support vectors, and they alone pin the boundary in place. Every other point could vanish and the line would not move an inch. Real data is rarely so tidy that a straight line works. When the classes curl and interleave around each other, the kernel trick quietly maps the points into a much higher dimensional space, where a shape that was hopelessly tangled becomes something a flat boundary can separate cleanly again. And the beautiful part is efficiency. A kernel function like the RBF kernel computes the needed dot products in that big space without ever building it. So a straight boundary up there comes back down here as a smooth curve drawn cheaply. So if you remember three things about how this model works, remember these. Maximizing the margin is the heart of it. The SVM doesn't just separate the classes, it separates them with the widest safety gap, which is why it holds up so well on data it has never seen. Only the support vectors define the model. The boundary depends on those few edge points alone, so the solution stays compact and the bulk of your dataset simply doesn't enter the final decision. Delete a distant point and nothing changes at all. Kernels unlock nonlinear boundaries. A soft margin setting also lets a few points sit on the wrong side to avoid overfitting, and together that makes SVMs shine on high-dimensional, small to medium data like text and bioinformatics. Alright, let's lock in the 4 things worth carrying with you. A support vector machine from Cortes and Vapnik in 1995 classifies by finding the maximum margin boundary between two classes, the go-to method before deep learning took over. Only the closest points, the support vectors, actually determine that boundary, which keeps the model compact and stable. Kernels, like the RBF kernel, map data into higher dimensions so the SVM can draw curved boundaries without the cost of building that space. Great on rich, smaller datasets with many features, though it scales poorly to truly huge ones. If you enjoy machine learning explained without the jargon, Standarity.com has a whole shelf of these. Come take a look.